or whatever. And my answer was, because I like it.
I love it.
And because it fits my vision, right? And so I got a lot of, sort of, I guess, grief on doing this. But then later, all these clients started hiring me to put sports figures in these crazy, grungy backgrounds, right? So because I followed my vision and didn't do what everyone else is doing, I ended up sort of making a niche that people took notice to, and I started getting hired for. So it's a risk when you first do something that you're going to get, people questioning it, because most people, especially when you get online, social media and stuff, they're going to, if you buck the status quo, the traditional approach to anything, you're going to get people just ripping you to shreds. And you have to be able to hold your ground in that. And I think what a lot of people don't understand too is when you take a risk in the beginning and you do something a little different, you have not really refined that look very well. So it may be a little bit rough around the edges, and so it's not as I guess refined to the point where, but if you keep doing it, then that refining happens. So when you finally get the technique down and you drop the beautiful woman jumping and then in a cool background, and people go, "Oh my gosh, that's incredible," or maybe not, I don't know, but it's you gotta give it time to refine the look. Yeah. And so you're going to get a lot of slack for stepping out of the traditional mold, but then you also get some slack because maybe the technique is not 100% there. But give it some time and you're going to refine it.
Yeah. There's somebody here. So I'm just going to do a little here. So everyone, because there's a lot of questions, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the webinar. Do not worry. So keep your questions and put them back again at the end. There's just one person here who's speaking. Brad is asking about this specific photo. He says, is this a composite image or shot in camera?
Okay, so there's a couple questions that I always ask when someone asks me that, or I reply. Number one, what does it matter? Is it important for you to know that? Well, okay, I'm an artist with a set of tools. I used to be a photographer with but now I'm an artist with a set of tools. So it's number one is because I started doing composites and I got grief like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I got shredded for taking a subject. I was early on doing this, taking a subject in the studio and then dropping the background. So this is a composite. I do, and I have done shots like this all in one. And most of the work I've done in the last 5 years are not composites. So all my cowboy stuff, all that stuff, it's not composites. So whether it's a composite or not is not really important. What's important, does it work? Now, I do composites for one reason, is because you can't always get a subject in the right location at the right time of day and the cost of that. So, or in this case, there's actually cars driving down this alley. So if I set up my lights in there, I'd have to have a permit. It would probably cost me thousands of dollars to be able to actually photograph this girl in this alley. And this is in Pasadena. So when I do a background, I shoot it and then bring her in the studio. It's an easier marriage of that vision as an artist. I would love to do it on location, and I do a lot on location. But I guess the point is, maybe I'm not against asking that question as a composite. I'm against the idea that why does it matter? I guess that's the question I have. Now, I would say this: you have to learn the skill set to compete in the marketplace to do a composite, and you have to learn the skill set to do it on location. You have to have both those skill sets. So if you say, I've never done a composite, or if you do a composite, you're not a true photographer. I don't go by that argument anymore, because I classify myself as an artist with a camera and Photoshop and whatever. Yeah. If I classify myself as a photographer, then I don't even know what the definition of a photographer is anymore, but you're bound by the definition of that. And I don't want to be bound by that.
Yeah, there's somebody here that says a very cute comment. This is coming from Coffee. Says, whether composite or otherwise, it's art. And Joel is an artist. So
there you go. That's what's important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, perfect. So we're going to get into secret number 2. how to make your photography liked by everyone.
Well, I wish I could do that, but in the real world, it's not possible to have everyone like what you do. Now, have you ever been in a car with someone and you're going on a road trip and they put their music on and it's AC/DC and you like James Taylor, or whatever? And
yes, that has happened.
Yeah, or you like AC/DC and I put James Taylor on, right? And you're like there for hours listening to the music you don't want to hear, and what that tells you is that we all have different kinds of tastes and likes, and so when you go to my father-in-law used to say, when you go to the grocery store, a big grocery store, there could be 13 different types of pickles.
Yeah.
Why did you need 13 styles of pickles? There might be even more than that, because we live in a world that we need and we have choice, right? Now, if you don't have a choice, you just say, I'm going to pick any pickle jar that's on the shelf. But we have likes and dislikes. And that's the way we are as humans, is that we have the freedom and the ability to make choices. And so we say, I like this kind of music. I don't like this kind of music, or I can maybe tolerate this, but I can't tolerate that. And so when you put your work out there, you're going to find people that say, oh, I love what you do. And there's people go, oh my gosh, that is the worst photograph ever. And you call yourself an artist, get a real job. So it's impossible to have everyone like what you do. Now I'm going to give you an example of why it's important to understand this, not just from this perspective of being crushed, which we talked about, which you're going to get crushed. And there's a story that I tell about my first portfolio showing where I got crushed and I wanted to quit. And my studio mate, he rescued me. He said, don't let one person steal your dream. And I tell that whole story in my, the main master class that I've had for a while on the business side of things. But, so you're going to have to learn how to overcome that part. But there's an added benefit financially in the marketplace for you to come to a point where you understand that your job is not to win over every art director. When I first started, I thought that. So I'd go and show my work and they go, that's all right. Okay. We'll call you. Don't call us. We'll call you. And they, open the door and give you a little boot out, the door. And I would be crushed by that. What I discovered is that, number one, once I started getting work, I could only handle so many clients.
Yeah.
I didn't have a staff of 15 people, but I was running like a crazy person trying to really, my roommate, a studio mate and I, we said, well, you can really probably handle 10 clients in a Denver market. I was in Denver at the time. 10 clients, maybe they give you one big job a month, or some of them, maybe give you a couple or whatever. You can't do that many. You can't handle that many clients. Okay. So that's number one. So if there's a potentially in Denver market, let's say there's a 500 potential clients, all you need is 10. Yeah. That's all you need. Okay. So you don't have to win over everyone. And then the other added benefit that I discovered, it took me a while, and that is that when I go and create images for a potential client, so I'd look at their work. I'd look at the photographer that was doing work for that client. So I'd say, oh, they like this style. The company likes this style. And so I'm going to go out and build a portfolio with those types of images in it. Okay. So that makes sense because you want to compete in the marketplace. So you're going to go and mold your portfolio to be competitive in the marketplace. So it makes sense to go and find out, what does that client really want? So I did a lot of healthcare stuff, very conservative clients generally, back in when I was doing healthcare stuff. I did a lot of stuff for telecommunications. I did a lot of stuff for mining companies, power utilities. So I had all these clients that but what happened was I'd go out and try to copy a photographer that was doing work for that client. And what I discovered was every other young photographer in Denver was doing the same thing. Yeah. So what happened? When I show my work, they go, oh, well, yeah, the last photographer had the same kind of stuff. The photographer before that had the same kind of stuff. So what it comes down to then is really price. Was I competitive with my price? It wasn't my style that they were really, necessarily swayed by. And so I had a revelation. What if I go out and do the images that I want, build my own voice, and then build my portfolio with my personal images that I love, and then pound the streets and hit art director after art director after art director. And then an art director comes along and goes, wow, this is a fresh view. This is kind of cool. You know what? I got a client that would be perfect for this look. And what happened was I started getting more work. The minute I gave up trying to figure out what the client wanted, I decided what I wanted, and then I'd put it out there, and I'd get my 10 clients. But here's the beautiful thing that happened. I got to charge a lot more money.
Yeah.
And because I was the only photographer in town doing that look. So I could say, you want that look? Ching, ching. It's going to cost you.
Completely makes sense. You were telling me yesterday when we were talking about The Secret, you were telling me that how to make your photography liked by everyone. You're like, that doesn't exist. It's just, that is not a true statement. And you were telling me that you had produced and produced and produced to not get into this thing about trying to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, you have to, I guess what I would say is that I hope you, those that are listening here, you have to take on a mindset that fits the actual true marketplace. And we all start out with the wrong mindset. Who's teaching us? In college, you think I learned how to go and market and how to go and build a style, how to build trends? You think they taught me that? No. They taught me how to f-stop shutter speeds and how to take a picture. They didn't teach me any of this stuff. And so when I went out into the real world, I thought, if I'm a really good photographer, I'm going to be successful. Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
So I had to get a different mindset. I had to learn how to win over clients. And it took years. I'm 40 years into it. And I'm still learning things that, help me as to be successful, to reach my goals. So it's a mindset that you have to take on. And that's why I like to pass that on to say to you, the best photographers out there don't make the most money or aren't the most successful. There's a lot more to it. And so I talk about a spoke in a wheel, and there's these different spokes that I have to learn to make it all roll down the road. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was a one spoke thing. Be a great photographer. There's more to it.
Right. Yeah. And you were telling me also about this being too hungry, when you began and you were being too hungry. I mean, not you, but you were talking that was one of the things that you had observed, that a lot of people are just being too hungry and take anything that comes along the line. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I have to pay my bills, right? So someone comes along and says, can you do this? Yeah, I'm starving. I need to pay my rent or whatever. And so we get in a trap. And I'll tell you, there's a couple points in my career where I had an aha moment. And I'm not a very good dancer, but you know how you get up and you go, I finally get this, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the aha moments is that when I could, a client would call and say, hey, we got a photo shoot, do we need a bid or whatever? Or sometimes they'd give you this is how much money we have. And I was so broke or so desperate to get work that I would underbid to get the work. And I would take work I really didn't want to do. Okay. And so then at the end of the day or the end of the month or the end of the year, I wasn't very happy because I'm not doing what I really love. Right. The aha moment came is when I got to where I started getting work from clients that I liked. And then when a client would call that I didn't really want to work for, I'd say, no. I could say no. Or I had enough money in the bank where I wasn't desperate to lowball. Does that make sense?
It completely makes sense, yeah.
What a complete different mindset or I guess experience is when you can say, no, I don't want to do that job. And I don't want to do it for that cheap. Yeah. And it takes a while. It took me probably 15 years to get to that point. Wow. But once I did, life started to become a lot better. I had a skip in my step and a little dance every once in a while because I was doing what I love and I had clients that I really wanted to work for and I wasn't lowballing everything. So anyways. Yeah.
No, it's really nice to just have an abundance and be able to decide. I mean, it's a completely different way of viewing everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. You want to tell us this incredible story about this guy here?
Well, I got hired by a company to do this shot, and I did a whole bunch of celebrity